Hi guys, I'm going to continue reading some of Blood on the River. So I know we stopped a little bit before chapter 22, but I'm just going to pick up at chapter 22. So in the end of chapter 21, that's right where Reverend Hunt dies, if that gives you guys a little bit of feedback. So chapter 22, if you remember, page 173. Our trouble starts when winter sets in. If we had more skilled farmers and hunters, and if we were all worked at farming and hunting, we might be able to produce enough food to get us through the winter. But as it is, our men are kept busy searching for gold, digging sassafras, making clapboard, glass, pitch, tar, soap ashes to ship back to England, in the hopes that something in the lot will make a profit for the Virginia Company. And to make things worse, when Captain Newport leaves in December, he takes a lot of our food stores with him, seeing he and his sailors will need them for the long voyage home. At least he takes Captain Ratcliffe as well, and rids us of him. When our barrels are close to empty, Captain Smith goes to trade with the natives for grain, but he comes back empty-handed. Chief Powhatan has commanded all of his tribes not to trade with us. He is wielding his power, says Captain Smith. He is showing us that the crowning ceremony angered him, and that his power is not diminished by it. We will see what else he plans to do. Back in chapter 21, they tried to do a coronation, making Chief Powhatan a prince of England, and he did not take that very well. We are allowed 1 cup of grain for each person each day. I am always hungry. I often think of the feast at Werawakamono and wish I was there again. Richard and I dig up sassafras root to chew on to ease our hunger. Then we talk about food, trying to use our minds to fill our bellies. My mom used to make Yorkshire pudding at Christmas time, I say, with the crust just a little brown and loads of gravy. Richard closes his eyes, imagining, and remember All Saints' Day at the orphanage, he asks, when we had stew with enough meat in it so everyone got some? We talk about the birds and fish we roast on Nevis, and I tell him again about the mounds of peas, squash, and venison at Werawakamono feasts. Soon our jaws are tired from chewing on the sassafras roots, and for a time our bellies are fooled into thinking we have eaten. Then one day we have good news, or what seems like good news. 2 natives arrive to tell us that Chief Powhatan is ready to trade again. He will give us food if we bring him what he wants: a grindstone, a rooster, a hen, copper, beads, 50 swords, several muskets, and workmen to build him an English-style house. He knows we are hungry enough that Captain Smith might well give him all he wants, including the weapons. President Smith rubs his forehead and says quietly, "We are desperate for food." To the messengers in Algonquin he says, "Tell Chief Powhatan we come. Give him things he wants." But as the messengers walk away, he says in English, "Except the guns and swords. I'll throw in some extra gifts instead." I smile. Watching the battle of wills between Captain Smith and Chief Powhatan is like watching the dance of a sword fight between 2 proud and powerful men. We load up 2 barges and the Discovery for the trip to Werawakamono. We hope to bring all 3 of the vessels back laden with food. The first night we stop at the Warawarsiak village and are welcomed as guests. Chief Succumptum shares his pipe of tobacco with Captain Smith, and shares some advice as well. I listen hard to understand the Algonquin words. Chief Powhatan will treat you kindly, but do not trust him, he says. He has sent for you only to slit your throats. Captain Smith does not seem surprised, and I realized he has already guessed that this might be a trap. We keep guns ready, he says in his choppy Algonquin. Then he looks at me. "I leave boy with you?" he asks, Chief Satenticum. I send messages to him. If I dead, boy goes to Jamestown. Tell others. This sends chills to my bones. I want to object, to tell Captain Smith not to go. Why is he willingly walking into a trap? We are surviving on our grain, I want to tell him. Captain Newport will be back soon. Let us all return to Jamestown tomorrow and wait for the supply ship. But I don't say anything. It is not my place. Chief Sasanticum agrees, and Captain Smith and the other men will go to Wakamono in the morning. I will stay in Warawarsiak village and wait. If Captain Smith is killed, I will return to Jamestown to bring the news. The next morning I watch the Discovery sail away with Captain Smith at her helm. I wonder if it will be the last time I see him. I push down sadness. I have already lost Reverend Hunt. I don't want to lose Captain Smith as well. I tell myself that he is wily and smart, and will not easily fall into Chief Powhatan's trap. The Warawarsiak village is a busy place. I want to do my share of work, but when I try to help two girls with their pounding of corn into meal, Kainta, Chief Sasanticum's son, pulls me away. That work is for women to do, he says. I'll show you men's work. He takes me into the forest. There is a thin layer of snow on the dead leaves, and my feet crunch loudly on them. He stops and looks at me, frowning. You are very loud, he says. He inspects my shoes. My mother will make you moccasins. He looks around, finds a sapling that seems to be just right for what he is searching for, and cuts it down with his hatchet. I will teach you how to make a bow and arrow, he says. Working with wood and stone is a good way to keep my mind off what might happen to Captain Smith. Kainta teaches me how to peel the bark off the sapling, cut notches for the bowstring, and string it with strong gut. We make several arrow shafts from straight, thin wood. He shows me how to make an arrowhead, chipping a piece of rock until it is the right shape. It is a slow process, and I ruin several pieces of rock before I get it right. But finally, I am able to make my first arrowhead. Then I tie it to a shaft and balance the shaft with feathers so that it will shoot straight. When we grow hungry, we go to the communal cook fire. There we find a large clay pot filled with hominy and venison stew, fish on the grill, and bread baking in the hot ashes on the ground. Eat, says Kainta. He tears off a piece of bread and uses an oyster shell to scoop up stew right out of the pot. I do the same. It is delicious. This is what I have seen people do all day. Just come up to the pot and take what they want to eat. I realize that they have no mealtimes, no rationing of food, and I think that these Powhatan people must be the wealthiest people on earth. A young woman comes to put a new loaf of bread in the ashes and to stir the pot of stew. She wears a kind of apron made of deerskin and that hangs down to her knees. Her face, arms, and legs have colorful tattoos of patterns, flowers, fruits, and snakes. Her black hair is plaited into one long braid hanging down to her hips. She smiles shyly at me. How strange I must look to her in my English clothes. No messenger comes that day or the next. I don't know if this is good news or bad. I have no choice but to wait. At sunrise, I go with Kainta down to the river, where he bathes in the frigid water. I stay, shivering on the shore. Kainta sprinkles a bit of tobacco on the river, closes his eyes, and lifts his hands. I know he is praying. This is what Namontauk did each morning when he lived with us in Jamestown. The days go by, and I learn more about men's work, which is mostly about hunting and fishing. I am also careful to learn which chores are women's work, so that I will not embarrass myself again by trying to do any of it. Planting, weeding, harvesting, making clay pots, cooking, making clothes. It is all for the girls and women to do. Kainta teaches me how to make a knife by chipping away a piece of rock until it is sharp, then tying it with gut onto a short stick. He gives me a buckskin pouch and shows me how to hang it from my waist with a leather strap. My knife fits nicely inside. I continue to make my arrows, chipping the arrowheads and tying the feathers, until I have enough to go hunting. Kainta shows me how to weave a case so that I can carry my arrows on my back. He has me practice with my bow and arrows and a target until I can shoot it straight. It snows. Kainta says this will make hunting even easier because we will be able to see the animals' tracks in the snow. I have my new moccasins, and I walk carefully, heel to toe, the way he has shown me, trying to be as silent as he is. I am concentrating so hard that at first I do not notice someone else who has been walking quietly in the forest. Then suddenly I look up and see him. "Namantak!" I cry out. I am very glad to see him. Then I realize why he has come. I am filled with fear. He is the messenger from Wakamono. I stand, gripping my bow, waiting for the bad news. Namantak smiles. "Do not look so worried, Samuel. Your master sends good wishes." I groan with relief. Then I am confused. "Why have you come and not Captain Smith?" I ask him in English. He answers me in Algonquin. "I am in his world now. Captain Smith says you will stay with the Warawarsiaks through the winter. You will learn more of the language and eat well." Kainta joins us. He and Namantak exchange the greetings of countrymen. With one fist each taps his own chest, then forehead, then taps the other boy's chest and forehead. "Come," says Kainta. "You must be hungry after your journey. We will hunt later." We sit with Namantak at the communal cook fire as he eats. I form my question in Algonquin. "Chief Powhatan make trap?" I ask him. Now that I have heard the good news, I am ready to hear the whole story. "Yes," Namantak says, "but your Werawans is quick as a rabbit. The trap did not catch him." He grins. He likes Captain Smith as much as I do. In between mouthfuls, Namantak tells us what happened. Captain Smith and his men arrived in Wakamono and were treated kindly. They traded for lots of corn, but by the time their boats were loaded up, the tide was out and the boats couldn't move. They had to spend the night in Wakamono, staying in one of the houses. Just after dark, Captain Smith heard a sound at the door. It was Pocahontas. Her eyes were wide with terror. "You must go," she says. "In a little while my father's men will bring you food. As soon as you put your weapons down and begin to eat, they will slit your throats with your own swords. And if they don't succeed, there will be a bigger attack later." She begged them to leave right away. She was crying. She knew that if she was caught warning Captain Smith, her father would have to put her to death. She may have been play-acting the first time, I think, but this time she really did risk her life to save Captain Smith. The tide was still too low for them to leave. Within an hour, 10 strong warriors came with platters of food, like Pocahontas had said they would. The warriors said the slow matches on the Englishman's gun were smoking up the room, making them sick, and they should put them out. But Captain Smith just said, "Oh, we don't mind the smoke." Then he made the warriors taste all the food to make sure it wasn't poisoned. Captain Smith and his men ate their supper with their guns smoldering and ready. "And later? The big attack?" I asked. Namantak tells us how the Englishmen kept up a guard half the night, standing with their muskets ready. There never was an attack. At midnight the tide had risen enough to move the boats, and they left. So Captain Smith and his men are safe, and they have taken corn back to Jamestown. "Thank you. Good news," I say to Namantak. It has begun to snow again, and Namantak is invited to stay the night. He sleeps in the family house with Kainta and me. The next day, the 3 of us go hunting. We walk quietly through the white forest, stalking the rabbits. We see one. Even I have been quiet enough to not startle it. Kainta and Namantak both look at me. They want me to shoot, to have a chance to make my first kill. Silently, I pull out an arrow and string it on my bow. I make my breath even and slow so that it will not affect my shot. I watch the rabbit as it hops along the undergrowth looking for food. I pull back the bowstring and aim. Then I let the arrow fly. There is a whoosh and a thud. The arrow hits its mark. The hare lies still. Blood seeps out where my arrow has entered its side, staining the snow bright red. Kinda claps me on the back. "You have learned well," he says. I am still amazed at what I have done. "Go, take your prize, and give thanks to the god Oikius for your meat," says Nemantak. I tie the rabbit's hind feet to a piece of gut and hang it around my waist. We hunt some more, and the other 2 boys also get rabbits. The winter day is short. When the sun sinks down, casting long shadows over glittering snow, it is time to return to the village. I use my knife to cut open the rabbit's abdomen and clean out its entrails, and to peel the rabbit's skin away from the meat. My rabbit, which I have killed myself with a weapon I made myself, becomes part of the communal stew that evening. It makes me feel proud and strong. Nemantak goes to Werawakamono, and I stay at the Warawarsiak village, as Captain Smith has prescribed. Kinta and I do more hunting. He shakes his head when he sees me trying to keep my hair, which is getting quite long, out of my face. He asks his mother to cut my hair for me. She takes 2 mussel shells and grates away the hair on the right side of my head, down to the scalp. It pinches and pulls, but I keep still. On the left side, she leaves it long, and she cuts a ridge of short hair down the middle of my head, so that my hair looks very much like the other men and boys. "There," says Kinta. "Now it will not get caught in your bowstring." When the winds of February blow cold, I wear a mantle of deerskin. During the March thaw, I kill my first wild turkey. Kinta ties 2 of its feathers into the long side of my hair. In late April, when the mosquitoes fly and gnats come out, Kinta shows me how to layer bear grease mixed with a powder of red porcupine root, and it keeps the bugs away. It also makes my skin red, so I no longer look very much like an English boy. One day, we are playing a game that is much like English football. We have a goal at each end of a field, and we kick a ball made of skins, trying to score by kicking the ball into the other team's goal. I have finally gotten tired of sweating in my slops and long-sleeved shirt during these games, and have let Kinta's sister make me a buckskin breechcloth to wear. The red porcupine dye protects my back, chest, arms, and legs from the insects and the burning of the sun, and my moccasins protect my feet for running. The right side of my hair has been newly shaved by Kinta's mother, and the left side of my hair is quite long, almost to my shoulders. I've added a few shells to the feathers as ornaments. As we play, I hear a call of "Wingapo!" spoken with an English accent. I stop running. I have almost forgotten what English speech sounds like. What I see takes my breath away. It is Richard, Nathaniel, Henry, Abram, and several others. They look thin and wan. They are walking towards us. Richard calls out, speaking Algonquin, as if he has memorized just what to say. "Captain Smith send. Needs eat. Find English boy. Samuel." I sputter. "Richard!" I call to him. "It is me!" Richard's eyes go wide and his mouth drops open. "By God, he's turned into a savage," Henry says. I ignore Henry and go to greet Richard and the others. The Indian boys gather around us. "Are you here to bring me back?" I ask, still not understanding why they have come. Richard shakes his head. "We're here to stay for a while, to eat. Rats got into the grain. There were so many of them, they looked like maggots squirming in the barrels. We have almost nothing left. So President Smith has sent us different places. Some he sent up the river to live on oysters, some down the river to Point Comfort to live on fish, and some to other friendly tribes. We got sent here. We have copper to pay our way." I translate as best I can for Kinta. He nods and says he will go tell his father that they are here. "So," Richard eyes me curiously, "did that stuff get stuck in your hair, or did you put it there on purpose?" I sock him playfully in the arm. We both laugh. I think of how I want to teach him what I have learned, how to make snares to catch beavers, otters, and squirrels, how to build a fire in a canoe at night so the fish will be mesmerized and come close to the spear, how to find mushrooms and roots and berries that are good to eat. I know that with the knowledge I have gained from living with the Were-Warsiaks, we don't ever have to be hungry again. And that's where we'll stop.